The first hour of Monday, January 20th, you're watching World News Program on All 24 News. I'm your host, Kim Zachary, and up next are the headlines. 90 Palestinian prisoners are released and 3 female detainees are handed over to the Red Cross as part of the Gaza ceasefire agreement with celebrations of resilience. Also coming up, Hamas marks 471 days of struggle, reaffirming commitment to the ceasefire if the occupation complies. Meanwhile, thousands of displaced people return home as aid flow throws Karam Abu Salam. Coming up next, the occupation continues its raids ahead of the ceasefire, causing dozens of martyrs and injuries in Gaza City, Khan Yunis and Beit Lahiya, with intense airstrikes near Al-Quds Hospital in southern Gaza. And Algeria chairs high-level session of the UN Security Council to discuss developments in the Middle East and the Palestinian issue. This and more shortly. Hello again and welcome back to the program. First up in our news, the Prisoners Information Office confirmed that 90 Palestinian prisoners, including 69 women and 21 minors, have been released as part of the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. The group consists of 76 from the West Bank and 16 from Al-Quds. The release, supervised by the International Red Cross, took place at Offer Prison, with the prisoners now being transferred to Baytunia, west of Ramallah. Similarly, 3 female prisoners from Din al-Qassam brigades were handed over to the International Red Cross in Gaza City as part of the first phase of the prisoner exchange deal. The ceremony, held at the Saraya Square, drew a large crowd and was attended by armed Qassam brigades members. This marks a key step in the ongoing ceasefire and exchange agreement, which began Sunday morning in Gaza. Faris Kedura, the head of the Prisoners Affairs Authority, announced the release of 1,737 Palestinian prisoners as part of the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. In an interview with Palestine TV, Kedura confirmed that the list includes prisoners and detainees from the Palestinian resistance. And after 15 months of conflict, residents of Beit Lahiya and Maghazi are returning home despite losing everything there. With Gaza's buildings destroyed, the ceasefire starting Sunday faces challenges in reconstruction due to a lack of machinery and widespread displacement. More on this story with Yassina Rikti now.
Since October 7th, Gaza has been caught in the crosshairs of relentless Zionist airstrikes, leaving the strip battered, broken and brimming with heartache. Over 46,800 Palestinians were massacred and more than 110,000 have been injured in just 15 months. A harrowing toll that speaks volumes about the staggering costs of the genocidal war.
There are still thousands of bodies trapped under the rubble. Municipal authorities are working with other services to support the cleanup. We hope to find the remains of the victims in the coming days. However, our success depends largely on the use of heavy equipment, but the equipment fleet in Gaza is very limited.
The situation on the ground is beyond bleak. Infrastructure lies in tatters. Vital sectors like education are at the standstill. And the absence of construction materials has turned rebuilding hopes into a pipe dream. The United Nations warns it could take years and billions to piece Gaza back together. But for now, the top priority is ending the bloodshed.
In UNICEF, we are really fearful of a lost generation if these children are not able to go back to proper, formal education, and routine. What is really important to keep in mind is that this humanitarian crisis in Gaza is unprecedented.
We will settle between the graves. We will put up a tent and settle down. We are fed up. Our life is completely destroyed. It has become a disaster.
Families like Ismail al-Shadi's from Beit Lahia cling to the dream of returning home despite the odds stacked against them.
We will settle down on the ruins of our destroyed house. We will put up a tent and live inside. We will not find a palace. In the north, there is nothing. There are no buildings or houses where people can live.
The road ahead is steep. Humanitarian aid is urgently needed, and long-term reconstruction must follow. But as the saying goes, after every storm comes a rainbow. For Gaza, that rainbow can only begin with peace, but after what price?
The Gaza Government Office, meanwhile, announced that ministries and institutions are ready to resume operations under a plan to restore normal life in the Strip. Thousands of Palestinian police officers have been deployed to maintain security as work begins to reopen and rehabilitate streets following the ceasefire. And on Sunday, Hamas released a video titled Victory Statement to mark the start of the Gaza ceasefire. The clip shared on their official Telegram channel featured scenes from Al-Aqsa flood battle and operations by Hamas's military wing against Zionist forces over 471 days of conflict.
برب الراجمات الثاني حاملات الموت رعبا للعين صيحة الأقصى الجريح تدفقت صياتنا بالثأر كالبركان.
Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the ceasefire agreement in Gaza, describing it as the result of the resilience and sacrifices of the Palestinian people. The movement called on the international community to honor the Palestinians, particularly those in Gaza, for their steadfastness over 471 days of resistance against Zionist forces.
كنا على مدار هذه الحرب الأحرص على سرعة إيقافها.
Throughout this war, we have been the most committed to swiftly ending it, to spare the blood of our people and to stop this collective extermination. Together with our brothers in the Palestinian resistance factions, we declare our commitment to the ceasefire agreement and our readiness to implement its terms, including the cessation of hostilities, adherence to the exchange timeline, and the safe handover of enemy captives in exchange for our heroic and free prisoners at all stages of the agreed-upon deal. We emphasize, however, that all of this is contingent upon the enemy's adherence to the agreement.
Abu Ubaidah confirmed that Al-Aqsa flood battle opened new fronts and forced Israel to seek international support. The spokesperson for Hamas's Qassam brigade stated that while the battle began at the Gaza's borders, it significantly reshaped the region and altered the dynamics of the conflict with Israel.
The Battle of Al-Aqsa flood began on the outskirts of Gaza, but it has reshaped the region and beyond, introducing new dynamics to the conflict with the occupying entity. The tremor that the Zionist entity experienced during this battle weakened the foundations of its security doctrine, dealt it a significant blow, and dismantled its deterrence theory. It resulted in the killing and wounding of thousands of its soldiers, the destruction and decommissioning of nearly 2,000 military vehicles, and inflicted damage on the core of what is referred to as the enemy's national security.
And in international reaction to the ceasefire, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf described the Gaza ceasefire agreement as cautious hope and vigilant optimism. In an interview with our channel, Attaf urged the international community to support and expand the agreement, emphasizing the need for a broader effort to achieve a final resolution to the Palestinian issue.
If I had to describe the Algerian position on this agreement, I can say that what motivates us is a cautious hope and optimism that this agreement is a precise and very precise agreement and must receive the sponsorship of the international community. What we expect as Algerians from the Security Council regarding this agreement is first to be approved, adopt it, confirm it and expand the scope of international support for it.
Back to the development on the ground, the UN confirmed that humanitarian aid trucks are entering Gaza through Karam Abu Salim following the ceasefire. The first batch of 95 trucks, including fuel, has arrived, but delays continue as aid from Rafah is redirected for occupation inspection. Meanwhile, UNRWA reported over 4,000 trucks, half with food or full with food and medicine, are awaiting approval from the entity to enter. UNRWA's Filippo Lazzarini, meanwhile, called for an end to targeting aid convoys under the ceasefire. And on Sunday, Israeli occupation forces warned Gaza residents to avoid the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor before the ceasefire takes effect. Palestinian media also reported that residents were cautioned not to approach the sea in the coming days. Two other tragic developments. At least 19 Palestinians were killed on Sunday in Zionist shelling across Gaza despite the ceasefire taking effect. At least 9 were killed in shelling of Gaza City. Palestinian media reported deaths in the Ashaga and Ashujaiya neighborhoods. 6 Palestinians were killed and others injured in shelling of Khan Yunis, where Israeli aircraft targeted civilian and police cars. Additionally, 4 Palestinians died and several were injured in a bombing of Beit Lahia or a Beit Lahia house in northern Gaza as occupation forces began withdrawing from the area. On Sunday still, Israeli occupation forces launched an intense bombardment near Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City's Tel Al-Hawa neighborhood. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society reported that the attack injured a paramedic and damaged an ambulance en route to transport wounded in Khan Yunis, south of Gaza. And finally, occupation forces carried out new attacks in Gaza, resulting in 14 martyrs and 25 wounded within 24 hours. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported on Sunday that the death toll from the ongoing aggression has reached 46,913, with over 110,000 wounded. Many victims remain under rubble or scattered in the streets. Let's move on to other topical developments, but still in the Middle East, where the Houthi spokesman Yahya Sarriah announced an attack on the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and its warships using drones and cruise missiles north of the Red Sea. This marked the 8th strike since U.S. forces arrived in the region. In response, 4 U.S. airstrikes hit the Azraqin area near Sana'a. Meanwhile, media reported that the Houthis warned against any aggression during the Gaza ceasefire, threatening retaliation against forces in the Red Sea.
نفذ سلاح الجو المسير.
The UAV force missile forces, naval forces of Yemeni armed forces, with the help of Almighty Allah, carried out a joint military operation targeting the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and a number of its warships in northern Red Sea, using a number of drones and cruise missiles.
UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi announced on Saturday that around 200,000 Syrian refugees have returned to their country since December. He highlighted the development of a plan to facilitate their return and emphasized the need for sustainable funding and protection programs for both refugees and host communities. To another development, the UN Security Council, chaired by Algeria, will hold a session on Monday to discuss the Palestinian issue. Led by Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, the session will feature briefings on recent developments in Palestine. Council members are expected to welcome the Gaza ceasefire and call for its full implementation, while some may push for accountability over violations of international law by the entity. Similarly, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf arrived in New York on Sunday to oversee meetings as part of Algeria's rotating presidency of the UN Security Council in January. Mr. Attaf will chair high-level meetings focused on key issues affecting the Arab world and Africa, including the Palestinian cause, combating terrorism in Africa, and enhancing cooperation between the UN and the League of Arab States. And ahead of the high-level activities, Ahmed Attaf chaired a coordination meeting at Algeria's permanent mission to the UN, joined by Permanent Representative Ammar Benjama and the Algerian diplomatic team. During his stay in New York, Mr. Attaf will hold talks with UN officials, including Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and meet with counterparts from invited countries participating in the meetings. And on Sunday, President Abdelmajid Tebboune launched the National Cinema Sessions in Algiers, highlighting Algeria's push to develop a modern cinema sector. After the opening, he viewed a documentary on the country's cultural and cinematographic history. The session aimed to create a competitive industry by bringing together key players to draft a strategic roadmap. In his speech, Abdelmajid Tebboune emphasized Algeria's strength lies in its people, criticizing those who misjudge the nation.
نشوف أنا شباب 9 سنوات يمشوا يشاركوا في أقصى آسيا، في كوريا، في منافسات رياضيات، في منافسات روبوتيك، ويخرجوهم الأوائل ويدوا الميدالية الذهبية في دار الآخرين. يعني جيل قادر اليوم يرجع البلاد ويعطي الصورة الحقيقية على البلاد اللي تخلي كل مواطن يفتخر بوطنه من جهة ومن جهة أخرى باش تخلي أجانب ما عرفوش هذه البلاد يعرفوا قيمتها الحقيقية.
And on the same occasion, President Abdelmajid Tebboune urged making culture a cornerstone of Algeria's development, reflecting the nation's identity. At the National Cinema Sessions, he called on industry professionals to help shape the future of Algerian cinema, including the creation of a national body to manage the sector.
مدعوون من هذه الجلسات إلى وضع ملامح المستقبل للسينما الجزائرية بعرض الأفكار وبلورة تصورات مبتكريه تجعل بالوصول إلى النهضة بهذه الصناعة المتجددة وإدماجها في حركية مستدامة تجعل من السينما واجهة ثقافية عاكسة للشخصية الجزائرية والهوية الوطنية ومصدراً لترقية الوعي والاعتزاز بتقاليد مجتمعنا وبقيمنا الحضارية.
Similarly, President Abdelmajid Tebboune announced a solution for financing artistic projects and affirmed the state support for film production training programs both locally and abroad.
واليوم بالتقريب يعني أهل المهنة كلهم راه معنا. ونتمنى باش المخرجات تاع هذه الأيام اليومين ولا اليوم الوطني للسينما يخرج قرارات اللي تخلي حقيقة السينما الجزائري ينبعث من جديد. فيه مشاكل مادية، أنا نهنيكم من التمويل نهنيكم منه. والحرية المطلقة، حرية المطلقة. إلا هذا جيلنا الله غالب، إلا فيما يصدم تقاليد نتاعنا نحافظوا شوية على المتفرج.
President Abdelmajid Tebboune also announced the opening of investment opportunities in cinema hall construction for private operators, with the state guaranteeing property and financing support.
قاعات العرض صح مشكل مطروح، ومشكل مطروح بالأخص في المدن الكبرى، في قسنطينة، في عنابة، في سطيف، في العاصمة، في وهران، في تلمسان، في بليدة، ولكن كلها قاعات صغيرة وقاعات يعني عانات تبدلوا عليها اليدين كما يقولوا، اختارت تديها البلدية، اختارت ترجع الثقافة، اختارت ترجع هذه. لازم نتطرق لهم مادام موجودين باش نعاود نرجعهم للسينما، ولكن غير كافيين. اليوم اللي حاب يبني عن دوبلكس أنا نضمنوا له إن شاء الله، نضمنوا له الأرض والتمويل.
Let's move on now to other international development. The Russian Ministry of Defense announced on Sunday that its forces had captured the town of Vozdvezhenka in Donetsk and repelled 4 Ukrainian counterattacks. The ministry stated that Russian center groups units gained control of key sites across several areas in Donetsk. And in another topical development, in just hours, Donald Trump will be inaugurated as the 47th U.S. president with a grand ceremony. As he enters the Oval Office, eyes will be on his first decisions, likely focusing on economic policies, national security, and foreign relations. Let's get the details with Salman Asib now.
Donald Trump is gearing up for his second term as the 47th president with a whirlwind of executive orders and ambitious goals. At the top of his list, immigration. Trump aims to launch the largest deportation program in U.S. history, targeting 11 million undocumented immigrants, while also ending birthright citizenship. Trump also plans to expand federal immigration enforcement, even in sanctuaries like schools and churches are on the table, alongside a push to keep asylum seekers in their home countries. On the economic front, Trump plans to slap hefty tariffs 25% on goods from Mexico and Canada, and up to 60% on Chinese imports, marking a sharp pivot in trade policy. Simultaneously, he's poised to roll back climate initiatives, lifting bans on offshore drilling and pumping the brakes on wind energy projects, all while taking jabs at electric vehicles. As thousands of die-hard supporters flood Washington, D.C. to celebrate their champion, the mood is electric. From Pennsylvania to Hollywood, Trump's base remains steadfast.
Security standpoint, absolutely. We want to protect our president. Obviously, we've had a couple attempts already on his life, so we want to make sure he's safe. So I do feel, in a lot of ways, I'm very glad about it. There is a part of me, of course, that's very sad because we won't be able to actually witness it, with our own eyes per se. But again, I would rather see him be sworn in and be okay.
I got here at 5 in the morning. Yeah, and tomorrow the same. I was going to go out there now because of the freezing cold. I don't care. I've got to do it. Now, I can't wait to dance that YMCA dance. I'm practicing.
Beyond the domestic stage, Trump vows to swiftly end the war in Ukraine, though skeptics question the feasibility of such a claim. As his second term begins, Trump is doubling down on his promise to shake things up, keeping both allies and critics on edge.
Time to catch up on more stories making headlines around the globe in the News in Brief by Sofian Kinturi and Zahra Farjani this time.
Russia's Ministry of Defense reported destroying several HIMARS missiles and shooting down 66 Ukrainian drones over the weekend. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Air Force confirmed intercepting 43 of 61 Russian drones, targeting 9 regions. Both sides claim significant successes in their air defense operations.
South Korea's Constitutional Court extended ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol's detention for up to 20 more days after his failed attempt to impose martial law. In protest, over 44,000 of Yoon's supporters clashed with security outside the court after the ruling.
On Sunday, the UN's World Food Programme highlighted that 1 in 3 children in Sudan faces severe malnutrition. The WFP stressed that the need for support in this country is more urgent than ever, as the ongoing conflict has triggered the world's largest refugee crisis and pushed many regions to the brink of famine.
The Algerian men's volleyball team has started training for the World Championship in the Philippines this September. They aim for strong performance in Group 6, where they will face Ukraine, Belgium and Italy.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our program comes to a close. For more details or just to catch up on what you missed, you can always visit our social media platforms displayed below at your screen. Until next time, have a good one.